Welcome to Wrasslin Raw! All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and Attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico. Don't wipe your nose, it pisses me off! Joe Giammatteo.
That would have knocked out a horse.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw is War at a time. But first, just a brief heads up for our listeners. Over the next couple weeks, there's going to be some weird dates coming at you, the dates of the events that we're going to be talking about. That's because the WWF had a 2-week gap in their broadcast schedule while USA Network aired the US Open on American television. So it's my understanding that during this 2-week period, the WWF aired clip shows, which we're not going to watch here for the podcast. But
we had one of those Raws a couple years ago.
You guys don't want to see replays of the Patriot matches over the past month or so?
God, you know that's what it would fucking be, too.
Yeah.
Long story short, the next 2 weeks in what would ordinarily be a weekly viewing schedule here are going to get skipped. The episode that we're talking about tonight was August 18th, and then the next episode is going to be on In Your House 17, Ground Zero, which was just the next event in the viewing order there at the beginning of September. I think it was like September 2nd or 6th or something like that. I don't have that date in front of me, but you get the idea. So if anybody out there is keeping track on the dates here, just prepare yourself for a 2-week gap, not in our recording schedule, but in the WWF's recording schedule. With that being said, in this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on August 18th, 1997. This Raw was recorded at the Atlantic City Convention Center in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and features Vince McMahon, Jim Ross, and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready, you Atlantic City sweat hog.
Thanks to Christine Whitman, I am ready as well.
Yes. Not enough thanks goes out to Governor Christine Whitman for this. All right, then let's get into it. Things kick off with Vince McMahon in the ring to introduce ravishing Rick Rude. The interview that JR says will offer some clarity about that finish that happened at the end of the episode last week. Quick question, though. Rick Rude was coming out to burlesque stripper music here.
Yeah.
Very, very not in line with his look at all. His demeanor, nothing.
It's literally the music that we were joking that Sonny should be coming out to. He's actually coming out to the...
Is this what he... Because I know he used to do kind of like a male gigolo thing. Is this his old music?
No, it's...
Okay.
So this bothered me, and I looked it up. And the cock... So Rick Rude had that stripper music back in the 80s, but not that music. It was written by Jim Johnston, and apparently the cock changed his theme here in 97 because apparently the Jim Johnston song sounded too much like another song called The Stripper that was recorded. It
sounded too much like this song. So they played.
Yeah. So they were afraid to, I guess, get sued. So they got rid of his original song and gave him this even more cartoony
burlesque
stripper. Yeah. So bad.
The cock was a little more cognizant of IP infringement than the WWF in the 80s was, is what you're saying.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you, because that bugged the hell out of me. Last week, as we noted, I mean, Rick Rude isn't looking like the Rick Rude that he used to look like. He's got a flat top kind of set your watch to it haircut. He wears a suit. He's got a briefcase. Not the kind of thing that you normally associate with burlesque strippers. So
he looks like he's Mr. Wall Street right now.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. VK does look a lot like VK Wall Street, doesn't he? All right, well, so the audio here, I mean, not just the burlesque music, but the audio, the actual audio quality was messed up because I couldn't hear things very well at all. This almost kind of reminded me of an ECW taping from the late 90s. The audio got a little spotty there, too.
Well,
Rick
it's
Rude
been a while since New Jersey had wrestling.
That's true.
Thanks to Christine Whitman, they got it back. They got to work out
decade-old mics here.
Yeah.
The infrastructure hasn't caught up to progress yet.
Yeah.
Rick Rude did a pretty good interview here, although he did dodge a question as to who exactly hired him last week. I thought that was made clear with Shawn Michaels talking to him in a back hallway, but hey man, whatever. He really leaned into this insurance agent gimmick in the promo that he was giving, just all kinds of insurance references. And once it was done, JR said a lot of things, but I couldn't hear or understand them at all. That did get better as the episode went on, but at the start here, I could not hear commentary at all. The Hart Foundation showed up to give us a quick promo. I guess they're going to be taking on LOD here pretty soon. And after some old-timey footage of Atlantic City for some fucking reason, it must be some kind of handshake deal with Governor Christy Whitman to prop up the boardwalk there, maybe. We got backstage footage of Commissioner Slaughter and Shawn Michaels arguing with each other. The commish told Michaels he had to wrestle, and Shawn was not happy about it. And that's it for the opening segment, guys. A little tame compared to some of the recent openers we've had, but the interview with Rick Rude was definitely something new on our screens. Ryan, what'd you think of this?
Yeah, outside of the mic issues, I thought this was a pretty good start. How long has it been since we've seen Rick Rude? We got some words out of him, and I thought Rick did a pretty good job on the mic. Laid into these Atlantic City fans, calling them out of shape sweat hogs. I thought that was a good line from him. And then he really goes at length to explain he's a muscle for hire here. I thought the best line he gave was, "You provide the buck and I'll provide the bang." I thought that was a good line out of him. And yeah, I thought this worked, setting up, introducing us to him. And yeah, good job.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a little weak for me. I was expecting that ECW type Rick Rude. He's been in ECW since January of 97. I'm sure you guys have seen clips of him cutting promos in ECW for like Monday Night War stuff. And this just seemed really scripted to me. This seemed like he talked to Bruce Pritchard before going out there, and Bruce Pritchard gave him a bunch of fucking insurance puns to get in there. Yeah. It just seemed a little too scripted for me. I think he delivered it well. And also the Rick Rude, he's doing his normal promo, what I'd like to have right now promo. And I don't know, to me, it doesn't work the same while he's in a suit than him coming out in a robe and then removing it and calling everybody sweat hogs. It didn't have the same feel to it. But like I said, I think he delivered everything well. The music really bothered me from the beginning, but that's not obviously Rick Rude's fault. But yeah, and then Jerry Lawler noted that they were talking about Shawn Michaels going up against The Undertaker, and Lawler said this is the first time Shawn has gone against The Undertaker. I was trying to remember if they had a match on TV, and I don't think they have.
Huh.
That was an interesting note that he kind of just threw in there.
I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense, because outside of when Undertaker very first came in, since then he's been a babyface. Shawn Michaels has pretty much been a babyface, so I guess it's not a huge surprise they haven't faced off against each other. But yeah, that's an interesting tidbit.
Pretty much all they've got is shared enemies, right? Mabel, Sid, Diesel to a certain extent, Bret Hart. All right, well, after that new start that we got, let's go into our first match of the night. The Hart Foundation, Owen Hart and the British Bulldog, defeat the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, by pinfall in 4 minutes and 57 seconds. Commentary's audio was still really weak here for me. I'm not sure about you guys, but, if you have things that you want to add to this, please do, because there's a good chunk of this that I was missing. At the pay-per-view, there's going to be a 4-way tag match for the tag team titles. I was unlucky enough to hear that. I'm curious to see if that's going to matter at all. Did either of you notice the Dude Love fan club sign that had all of the bikini babes, like cut out bikini babes all over it?
Yeah.
And I didn't see that.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty awesome. In the match, when the Bulldog had Hawk in a headlock on the mat, I did like the Bulldog yelling back at Animal, "You're next!" That was just a neat little visual. It was little things like that I ended up looking for, because frankly, the action here was lackluster. I just felt like I had seen this match a dozen times over the past couple months. Why is that? Why do you think? Speaking of seeing this a dozen times over the past couple months, the Godwins came out with the slop bucket. Henry cranked Animal with the slop bucket to give Owen Hart the pin and the win, but that devolved into a clusterfuck there with officials, and it really didn't feel like anyone, and I mean anyone, commentary, fans, wrestlers, me, gave a single shit about any of it. And that's it. Like so many other recent matches on Monday Night Raw, this one came and went. Ryan, what'd you think about it?
Yeah, that's probably a good way to explain it, you know? I mean, it starts off Owen and Animal in the ring, and, you know, Owen does an okay job, and Animal is his typical Animal self in the ring. And, you know, I don't really have too much to complain about with this match. It just felt like someone right before Raw started was like, oh, we need to throw together a tag team match. Yeah. Let's get Owen the Bulldog and LOD, you know, and they put him out there. It was a serviceable match. Like I said, nothing to really complain about. It just was lackluster. I did like Animal's power slam that he landed right before the Godwins came out. I thought that looked very strong and on point, and Owen did a good job selling for it. But predictably, the Godwins come out and interrupt, and that's what gives Owen the win here. But definitely a throwaway match.
Yes, and Vince's favorite word over the past month is the word melee. He's loving that word right now. I don't know. At the beginning of this, I didn't think it was a terrible match. I thought the match was pretty good, but then here come the Godwins. You know, like you said, Ryan, very predictable what was going to happen here. They're trying to get us to really care about that Godwins versus LOD story. It was an accidental injury that they're trying to get a real story out of to get us to care, and I guess we just don't really care.
Moving forward, speaking of accidental injuries, except maybe this one is one we actually do care about, I guess JR spoke with Stone Cold Steve Austin in a hotel room at some point. This was a la JR's recent interpersonal expose series. We'll get some of that later on tonight. Also later on tonight, I guess Mankind and The Undertaker are going to be teaming up against Shawn Michaels and Hunter Hearst Helmsley. That sounds like that could be interesting. And speaking of Mankind, he's here on our screens to cut a quick promo for us, questioning his ability to work with The Undertaker. This was rhetorical questioning, which actually that's, the first place that my mind went to. Mankind left it up in the air as to whether or not he and Taker would be able to work together cohesively. And again, that was my concern as well. Shawn Michaels was up next on our screen at that backstage chain link fence burn barrel set they have with Vince McMahon via PA system or tape recorder or something asking just what the problem is with Shawn wrestling tonight. Shawn is still pissy because I guess people are still messing with him about his referee performance. Shawn claims to be the young Catholic boy that Vince's Caesar is throwing to the lions in that tag match later. I bet Vince just loved that. By the way, Shawn specifies that he is not tag team partners with Hunter. He's not happy about any of this. Something that Shawn was probably pretty happy about, at least at the time, was Sunny. I know you want me. She got announced down to the ring by the ring announcer to be our guest ring announcer for the upcoming match. But before we get to that, Joe, what did you think about Shawn's brief interview or promo or whatever you want to call it here?
I thought Shawn's interview was good. It's still, setting up this whole formation of DX. It's a little bit more of a slow burn, a little more of a slow burn than I remember. For some reason, I was thinking DX was just formed overnight, but it really wasn't. So, we're building the pieces there to get there. And as far as Mankind, I know he's basically a babyface now, but I kind of have a hard time buying him teaming up with The Undertaker tonight. Yeah. But I guess I'm just going to have to get over it.
I thought Mick did a good job in this promo, but like the two of you, it's just in my head, it's tough to see it. The Undertaker and Mankind, they've been mortal enemies since Mankind came in. So it's going to take a little bit of mental gymnastics to get that one to work, but whatever. I mean, they're both great workers, so I'm sure I'm not going to have a problem with that. Shawn Michaels, again, Joe, in agreement there. This was a perfectly fine promo by Shawn. He's just bitching about the fact that he actually is going to have to wrestle for once. That's unacceptable to him, that he has to wrestle. But yeah, I'm happy to see it. Every time he's in the ring, it's usually a riot. So yeah, let's force him in there.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I'm on board with that. Too much time spent with trick knees and all. Shawn's best attribute is his in-ring work, and we haven't been getting that, so the more the merrier. Let's move on to something I don't want. Our next match. Flash Funk defeats Brian Christopher by pinfall in 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Brian Christopher came out to Flash Funk's music. There was some kind of mix-up there. Sonny did a great job of rolling with it.
Yeah, nice recovery.
Kudos to her, yeah. And we got a promo in the ring from Brian Christopher. He ended it with that goddamn laugh. I realized he kind of sounds like Chucky when he does that.
A little bit, yeah.
Dimbala, I pray to you. Flash Funk also gave us a pre-recorded promo. It would have been more impressive if he weren't wearing bedazzled spandex and a pimp hat. I guess Brian Christopher will be meeting Scott Putski at Ground Zero. That sounds
Fantastic.
like a pay-per-view level match. Can't wait. I liked how Vince pointed out that Flash Funk is a heavyweight while Christopher is a lightweight. JR responded to that by saying that Funk's only got about 30 pounds on Christopher. And the match ended with the only good-looking move of the whole ordeal, which was a 360 splash from Funk to get the pin and the win. I really hope that this match came and went. Doesn't turn out to be the trend tonight. It's looking like it might. But Joe, what'd you think of this?
Well, first off, I really like the use of the girls here as ring announcers. I like Sonny doing that. Wrong music was played, which, yeah, she had a good recovery there, so that was funny to see. Flash Funk, he has not had the Funkettes for a while now.
Yeah.
So why are we still doing this with him? Like, he's capable of so much better than being funky and flashy and having a terrible ring gear. It's just really confusing to me why they didn't try something different with him. The Brian Christopher promo interview, whatever you want to call it, like I knew that cackle was going to happen at the end, and it still just bothered the shit out of me.
It's jarring.
It is. Even when you know it's coming, it's very jarring. And speaking of jarring, Vince on commentary with all of his stupid shit, like, oh, he's so funky. And what a maneuver after a drop kick. I don't know. I mean, this match was not exciting. I do have to say I did enjoy the finish, though. I did think the finish was pretty good, but other than that, I mean, this isn't very good.
Yeah, I mean, this is their best attempt to prop up this light heavyweight division, and it's not doing a great job of it. And that's not to any fault of Flash Funk. I thought he did a pretty good job here. You both already stated the finisher. That looked great. And the beginning of the match wasn't too bad either when Flash did that baseball slide onto Christopher and knocked him way back into the crowd barrier. And I thought Christopher did a decent job of selling that. And with Brian Christopher's promo, I will say his ring work isn't terrible. He's kind of growing on me as a heel. Like, not someone that I like, but someone who I respect to hate. And when the cackle came...
Annoying heel.
Yeah, he's doing a good job of being that annoying heel. So I think he's taking some pointers from his dad that makes sense, and I think we see why he's a at least semi-successful tag team, in a little bit here. But yeah, the match itself, very much a throwaway like the first one we had. Thankfully, though, Funk came away with a win, and I didn't have to slap him with Jobber of the Week. So, good thing for him.
Yeah, you're right. That's a pretty good spin on that. Brian Christopher does not have, what is that, go home heat, right?
Yeah.
The Scott Putski heat where I never want to fucking see you again.
Right.
Okay.
And you're going to injure somebody.
Yes. You're right. As offensive as I find him, I never want to, see him ran out on a rail. All right, moving along here, gentlemen. We got some more teaser footage of Stone Cold's interview. He was talking about seeing a spine guy. I hope it's not that sloppy hotel bum from a couple weeks ago.
Hey, do you got a cigarette I can give you?
That was followed by a promo from The Undertaker. This was filmed in a large echoing room that was definitely not a grave, but it wasn't a high school broom closet either. The Undertaker ended it by rolling his eyes up in the back of the head and going, ugh, which always a nice touch. I appreciated that.
Is that what you do before every Patriot match?
And that was it in this segment. Things kept moving pretty quickly, so we'll just briefly, please, Ryan first. What'd you think of The Undertaker here?
Still liking his short, sweet, and to-the-point promos here.
I loved this because, like I said earlier, I was feeling a little weird about Mankind teaming up with Undertaker, but Undertaker here tells Mankind not to get out of line tonight, and I thought that was a nice touch. I like that.
One thing to point out is just the last couple weeks, it's just been such a relief having the Undertaker without the belt.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's just, it works so much better.
Yep.
All right. Well, something that doesn't work. Our next match. Ken Shamrock defeats the Sultan with the Iron Sheik by submission in 3 minutes and 16 seconds. The Sultan got jobbed out here at the start because his entrance was obfuscated by crowd signs, followed by some focus on Commissioner Slaughter backstage, arguing with Hunter Hearst Helmsley this time. It was a great visual for how short it was because China was standing like a wall in between them, the Great Wall of China between the commish and Hunter. Really good visual there. Once the match started, the Sultan threw Kenny into the ring stairs at one point. That looked good. Shamrock's belly-to-belly suplex of the Sultan, that looked good. Shamrock ended up suplexing the Iron Sheik, too, after that. And then eventually Shamrock won with the ankle lock, which was good to see. My personal favorite submission move. That's more than I can say for the majority of the match, though. The rest of this, pretty lackluster. More so because of the Sultan, I think. But it was also nice to see Shamrock working the crowd after the match. Ken's slowly letting his personality work into things, and that's good. That's good progress for him. So while this match did, for me at least, just come and go like the others, Joe, I can't help but hope that maybe you've become more of a fan of the Sultan after it. What did you think of this?
Oh my God, no. The Sultan is not good.
Anathema.
And Sheiky Baby is out there just casually walking into the ring to take that slam, too, because you could tell Ken Shamrock was not wanting to rough him up. This was pretty bad, but I will say that I like the focus on the ankle lock submission. It's a gruesome looking move when applied by Ken Shamrock, and it's great to highlight for a guy who's going to be doing this snapping gimmick. Yes. It works so well. So that was a nice highlight.
Yeah, this match, I thought this match did its job because the Sultan, he didn't do anything fantastic and quite honestly could just be injured again and put on the shelf and out. But Ken, I thought Ken really delivered here. All of his moves were executed, very well. That belly-to-belly suplex looked impressive on the large Sultan. So, I guess, that's one plus having that big body in there. It just kind of highlighted Ken Shamrock's juice strength. And he lit him up. He lit the Sultan up a few times. And then the ankle lock was beautiful. I think it worked even better because the Sultan has on those goofy, oversized boots.
Oh, yeah.
And he was able to really twist it and make it look like he had his ankle like in a pretzel. Yeah. The match was kind of shitty, but I thought as a vessel for Ken Shamrock flipping out and showing off his ankle lock, I thought it did a good job.
Yeah, you're right. And I think you guys are making a great point with the ankle lock to highlight the savagery. Because it does. They did a nice zoom in view in the replay of the ankle lock here. And, you can see him bending it at an unnatural angle, and it helps to sell it. Especially when you've got, as you said, a juiced up freak applying it.
Literally juice pouring out of his pores.
You don't know.
Get out of my way!
You could lick his skin and grow a testicle.
Or shrink one.
All right, guys. Now that pesky wrestling is out of the way, we can get back to anything but. Vince was in the middle of teeing up JR's interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin, but the Nation of Domination came out to interrupt. There were a couple of D-Lo chants at the start of that, but there was also a pretty loud Rocky sucks chant too. I loved Vince saying that Ahmed Johnson had been excommunicated, as if this were church. Farouk said, "You wanted me to come out and talk about Ahmed," even though that wasn't the case. They weren't talking about the Nation at all. But personally, I'm glad they did. Farouk got right down to it, said that under all that thick black skin, Ahmed Johnson was just a white man dying to get out, wanting to be pretty like Shawn Michaels, and that Ahmed couldn't be white if they sandblasted his ass 20 times. And I fucking popped.
Just fucking undressed Ahmed Johnson.
Farouk was on fucking fire in this promo.
The beauty of it is that these guys actually hated Ahmed Johnson. This is almost like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels stuff that was more low-key.
Well, that good feeling wouldn't continue as we got the unfortunate news that there's going to be a street fight between Farouk, Savio, and Crush at the pay-per-view. So that sounds fucking terrible. Farouk recovered, though, to set up Rocky, who started off by addressing the Die Rocky Die signs and chants. Rocky called the fans pieces of crap, and man, that sounded good. Rocky called out the disciples of the Honey Dippers as being the real racists here, and I think the SS tattoos on 2 of them probably bears that out pretty well. So, good on him for that. Rocky also calls the fans jackasses. Again, very nice to hear. I was pleased to be called a jackass there. And Rocky finished it up strong. I was riding high with him up until we heard the bikes revving up. Talk about a kick in the balls. Crush and those fuckheads were up on the Titantron, and he thought he was being clever by using that old line, Nation of Constipation, that got played out months and months ago. Crush was punctuating his sentences with the word punks. Every single sentence he said, he finished it with just an extra punks, as though he was trying to drive some kind of point home.
Dirty Harry.
Yeah. He challenged the Nation to a fight in the parking area, where they were out there revving up their bikes, and as things were wrapping up, we got some wholesome family footage from the beach. Things keep getting better and better.
Oh my God.
We call them Gold Daddy and Mommy Lena, but their real names are Dustin and Terry, and they were with that goddamn kid Dakota, playing on the beach in a really pathetic attempt at family values. That went on way too long.
Looked like a commercial for Ocean City or something.
Yeah.
It just went on forever. And that was, I mean, I'm really thinking that they were trying to talk up Atlantic City or do some kind of favor for Whitman with this, because followed by that public service announcement for the beauty of Atlantic City's beaches, there was more footage from the 1920s, because that has some kind of tangential relation, I guess, to a promo from Hunter Hearst Helmsley. China was present as always. He's still in that fucking blue blood voice. God, it broke a couple of times in this because he's giving Triple H promos, but with a Hunter Hearst Helmsley accent, and you can tell he's fighting it. He's getting away from it, and I'm rooting for him. That got interrupted so that we could see the Nation and DOA meet up in the parking area. The DOA looked incredibly staged back there. While they were fighting, Los Burritos showed up and stole DOA's bikes because, gang warfare. And that's it. Guys, this was a long one. A ton of short snippets all merged together, with Farouk and Rocky's promo probably being the only good part of it. Joe, what'd you have on all this?
Yeah, this group, this Nation of Domination, they look really good now. Just them coming out with Rocky. I mean, they just look so much better. Farouk, just like I said, completely undressing Ahmed Johnson with his words. I didn't pop. I was just more like, holy shit, man, chill out. He started talking about Savio and Crush, too, and I'm not sure exactly who he challenged at Ground Zero.
Well, I think
he
both,
was just
right? Aren't
on
they
fire,
all involved in this street fight?
Well, the three of them, yeah.
Pissed at everybody right now.
The heads of the three families.
Yeah, the heads of the families.
Yeah. Really great promo by Rocky here. This is the first non-Rocky Maivia promo, I guess, that we're getting out of him. So, it really takes me back to a little bit over a year ago when we started seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin instead of the Ringmaster. It kind of took me back there. And then it's just completely deflated by Crush. So that's really disappointing. Because this was really good shit going on in the ring with Farouk and Rocky talking here. But yeah, it got ruined. And then when we got to the beach footage, I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? Is this even a wrestling show? I don't even know what's happening there. And then, we get this interview with Helmsley. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why that even happened. They should have just gone to the back with the bikes being stolen, because that's really all they wanted us to care about. But again, we don't care. We don't care that they're stealing bikes.
Yeah, starting at the top with the Nation when they came down. Farouk was on fire in this promo. He had some stuff to get off his chest about Ahmed Johnson, and I thought he let out a pretty good line on Crush and Savio about the street fight, too. He said, "You want me in a street fight? I am the street." I thought that was a great line by Farouk. And then he passes it over to Rocky. It really was great to see because you could definitely see the beginnings of The Rock here. You know, he's not quite there yet. He's definitely not Rocky Maivia, but he's not quite The Rock yet either, but there's hints of it. Just him ripping on the crowd and ripping into them for chanting for him to die. I thought that was great. And then the highlight was him correctly pointing out the two Nazi fuck brothers in the DOA. That was the highlight of his promo. The low light of this whole segment, of course, is Crush coming up on the Titantron. Yeah. He cuts a terrible promo, bringing up the stupid constipation line, Nation of Constipation. Just so fucking dumb. Every time I see him, I just want to slap him in his stupid fucking face. And then the moment I saw two people frolicking on the beach with a kid, I knew it had to be Goldust and Marlena. I just, at this point, who else could it be? If we're showing off Mummy and Daddy, it's got to be those two. And then the Hunter promo, it was fine. You know, it's just further explaining, or at least trying to make us feel as if Hunter and Shawn Michaels don't want to team up with each other. So I guess that was fine. And then we get Garage Warfare number 2. This one was maybe a little bit better than the first time we got it because someone's head got put through a back window of a car and it shattered. So that was something. Something at least happened.
Can you guys guess whose car that was?
Was it the Fink?
No, it was Jim Cornette's car.
I thought for sure it was the Finks.
I think there's some story out there of Jim Cornette's car getting destroyed and him just fucking flipping out on somebody. I don't know if it's this one or a different one.
But regardless of windshields being broke or not, this was still a pretty weak garage brawl to end this little pathetic segment.
Yeah, let's move on past it. I could talk about Farouk and Rocky all night, but the rest of that, just what a downer to come after it. All right, guys, our next match. Jesse James defeats Brian Pillman by disqualification in 1 minute and 47 seconds. Jesse isn't singing his way down anymore, so that's good, right? Of course, Pillman came out in a dress again. Lawler said nice cleavage, and Vince McMahon just guffawed all over that. Jesse's ring work looked like it had slightly improved, so there's another positive. But then Gold Daddy and Mommy Lena came down, thankfully sans Dakota. So last week, I think it was last week, I said that I was looking forward to how this was moving forward, not because Pillman is in a dress, but because I was looking forward to the various creative ways that I'm sure they'll come up with to keep that moving, to keep him losing. In this case, they just gave up on that entirely. Goldust blatantly interfered, attacking Jesse James right in front of the referee. I mean, there was no hiding about any of this. There was no, circumspect aspect to it. He just waltzed into the ring and attacked Jesse James, therefore guaranteeing a victory for Jesse James and ensuring that Pillman would have to keep wearing the dress. As that kind of died down, they were leaving, and Michael Cole caught Goldust at the top of the ramp, with Goldust confirming that he just wanted to have Pillman lose and keep wearing the dress. But Pillman, still back down at the ring, grabbed a mic and offered up a stipulation. Pillman said, "Give me one more match, and if Goldust wins that, Pillman will leave the WWF for good. But if Pillman wins, Pillman gets Marlena as his personal assistant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 30 days. Pillman then claims that little Dakota is his love child, acting really perverted in doing so. And while Goldust was freaking out, Marlena grabbed the microphone and accepted the challenge. Goldust was obviously upset about that, and the crowd silence punctuated the situation as this ended the first hour of Monday Night Raw. Ryan, if I didn't know that this was heading towards Goth Mommy Lena, I wouldn't be nearly as excited about this as I am. So what did you think of this match and its aftermath?
I mean, the match itself kind of dissolved into cartoon bullshit almost immediately. Double J starts fondling Brian Pillman and lifting up his dress. And, it wasn't to be taken serious, from the very beginning. And then we get Goldust. He comes down, forces the disqualification. So Pillman will have to continue to wear it. But the point where Pillman says Dakota is his love child, I had to wonder, was this a storyline that they planned on doing? Was this something Pillman just did on the spot? Because if not, I have to question the parenting of Dustin and Marlena to bring your daughter into a storyline like this. And I just kind of baffling, right? That you would do that to your daughter who can't really on their own say they want to be involved in this type of a storyline. Because, if they went to school with kids that watch wrestling and then they start making fun of your dad isn't your dad or whatever, it just seemed really in poor taste to involve such a young kid in a storyline like this.
Yeah, it certainly won't be the last time the WWF does something like that either.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get to the good stuff, the challenge that Pillman lays out here. We're finally getting something out of this whole dress gimmick for the past 3 weeks. I haven't really been a big fan of it. It was taking me back to the crybaby stuff, and I was just like, where are they going with it? So we finally get there with Pillman's challenge, saying that he was the love child made me pop. I love that. Goldust calling him crazy and says no right away like any good husband would, but then Marlena is going to take the physical challenge like she's on Double Dare and accepts it, and we'll see where they go with it.
Yeah, let's look forward to that, because looking back isn't doing us any good here. So I lied just a second ago. The real thing that finished out the hour was Vader cutting a promo about the Patriot, because they have an upcoming match. Vince then called that the personification of the freedom of expression. Vader talking about the Patriot as we went into our next match. The Patriot defeats Vader with Paul Bearer by pinfall in 4 minutes and 55 seconds. JR said at the start of this that nobody has been on a bigger roll than Del Wilkes the Patriot, and I wanted to fucking puke. Just as the bell was ringing, though, Bret Hart came out from behind the curtain, and there was a flag wave off. That was enough of a distraction for Vader to jumpstart things in this battle of the no-selling between these two ham-fisted mother... All right, so there's no way in hell a good match was going to come from these two, and I wrote here, ham-fisted sloppy jabronis, both of them.
We've got two of the originators of jabroni in this episode.
Yeah. And even with JR pointing out that both of these guys are popular in some other country, in some other frame of time, that wasn't doing them any good here. The Patriots' reversal of the Vader bomb was especially offensive to watch. Just in the way it was worked. I mean, It's not because I was rooting for anybody, it's because it was just fucking sloppy and ham-fisted. But as soon as I typed that, the Patriot hit Vader with an even worse-looking DDT. I guess the Patriot's finisher is actually called the Uncle Slam, according to Vince, which is just fucking... yeah. I still prefer the Patriot Act, and that's what I'm going to use. So I don't even know how we got to the finish, because I was staring out the window at the time. But things were over. The Mastodon donkey punched the Patriot, drag him back into the ring. Bret Hart followed, and just as Vader was setting Del Wilkes up for a Vader bomb, Bret covered the Patriot with the Canadian flag. Vader turned around and very clearly shouted, "What the fuck are you doing?" at Bret. Vader ended up breaking the Canadian flag in half, attacked Bret. That drew out the Hart Foundation, of course. The Patriot got back up and got in the mix, and by the time it was all done, 4 referees were enough to restrain Del Wilkes as everybody just walked away. Joe, did this get you excited for that title match at the pay-per-view we've got coming up?
I was about as excited as this crowd was. This is where they start the second hour of Raw, by the way, and the crowd is hyped as fuck. Like, they're going crazy.
They just got the fireworks.
Yeah, they get the pyro, they get the applause sign, all that stuff, and then you hear Vader's music, and they just go silent, which I thought was just great. Vader is a guy who, rightfully so, you know, with the work that he did before WWF, he's a Hall of Fame guy, but like he has zero heat right now, and it's just hard to watch. I mean, he's this monster that has no heat. What could be worse? That's just terrible. So this match looked like a training school match. It was just fucking horrible. The Uncle Slam made me sick.
The fucking name.
Yeah. The stuff with Bret Hart after was just a weak attempt to get something going now with Bret and Vader. And who wants to see that? Nobody. This whole thing is, it was pretty disappointing.
I'm going to start with saying I know we've mentioned that, I think a few times at this point, how disappointed we are when we hear Kurt Angle's music, but it still gets me because every time I hear it for a brief second, I get excited. It's almost like a knee-jerk reaction that I can't really control until I see the Patriot's dumb fucking face come down the ramp. And then I realize, this is Patriot versus Vader. Fuck me. Once the moves start going, they are weak as fuck. You know, Vader starts things off with a extremely weak and slow clothesline that the Patriot doesn't sell at all. And that's pretty much the rest of this match. Slow, telegraphed moves. Everything about it looks bad. The weak-ass kidney kicks by Vader, I don't understand why both of these guys are so slow in the ring when the Patriot is a juiced-up motherfucker, and then you got Vader who's, he's a big guy, but they look like two welterweights out there hitting each other. And then it ends with the Uncle Slam. The Patriot jobs out the Mastodon. He gets this easy victory over someone who's supposed to be a monster. And then at the end, we get a confusing, brief babyface turn of Vader. You know, the crowd cheers for it because he's breaking the Canadian flag, but it's Vader. You know, we're not supposed to be cheering for Vader. So I don't know where the hell they're going with that. I don't know what the hell they thought this match was going to do, but it didn't do it.
Yeah. Great way of putting it, because you're right. It's not doing anything for anybody, period. All right. So next up is where we'll finally get to that video interview of Stone Cold Steve Austin. But not before a half a dozen replays of Austin getting his freaking neck broken.
Slow-mo, every angle.
This time they included a close-up of Austin's neck compressing.
Ugh.
Vince McMahon makes sure to point that out. Look at that compression. Vince really, really tried to glamorize it, saying that young children grow up with this man getting his neck broken as something to emulate and hope towards. This dedication is what you want to have, sacrificing it for your work.
Can't wait to break my neck someday.
Vince practically gave Austin the Shawn Michaels goozle treatment in describing Austin's fortitude. That segued to JR with Austin and the pre-recorded interview. This was, to me at least, a little frantic. Austin still not, I guess, maybe comfortable in his role as a solo speaker, maybe. I'm not sure. Austin was just all over the place in addressing JR's questions. Like I said, just frantic. He forgot what questions he was answering a couple times. I mean, I'm hoping that's maybe some kind of pain medication he's on for his broken freaking neck, but who knows? The bottom line, though, is that Austin is going to take a couple weeks, drink a few cases of beer, and think about things before he comes back to kick Owen Hart's ass. So, Joe, this was the first official word we got from Austin after getting his neck broken. What'd you think about it?
I mean, we didn't really find out much. The frantic behavior didn't really bother me too much. I think that this interview just makes Austin more likable by WWF fans because he's not taking any shit from anybody. He talks about drinking beers. He gets half of the interview bleeped out because of his language. Yeah. And he talks about kicking people's ass. I mean, this is all stuff that's going to just make him more likable by these fans. So I thought this was very effective considering the current situation.
Yeah, Joe, I think I'm in your camp here. I thought this interview worked pretty well, and his frantic attitude I thought was fitting. You know, it showed a guy who is pissed off, but maybe isn't sure about his future because he's not. And we don't know if he's ever going to step in the ring again. That's a real question that we have at this point and that he has. But he does his best to try and assure the fans, regardless of what the doctors say, it's my choice, kind of telling us regardless, he's going to get in there. He lays into Owen a little bit. He's understandably not very happy with Owen. I thought he did a good job of expressing that. And then, is this the first time we get him talking about drinking beer, driving around his four-wheeler? So. I guess maybe we're not too far away from when we get to see him start chugging beer in the ring. That's another milestone for the Stone Cold Steve Austin character. So I thought I thought it did a good job of just keeping us a little bit informed as to what's going on and keeping the idea of Stone Cold Steve Austin fresh in the crowd's mind.
All right, well, guys, it's been a build-up over this episode, but let's go now into our final match of the night. Mankind and The Undertaker defeat Shawn Michaels and Hunter Hearst Helmsley with Chyna and Rick Rude by disqualification in 12 minutes and 18 seconds. I have to remind myself here that this still isn't DX. Even though it's the start of it, I want to call it that. I had to, go back and erase notes because I just found myself reflexively referring to this group as DX, but they're not. Quick question. Were either of you two really underwhelmed by Shawn Michaels' entrance?
No, I loved when he was grinding on Chyna.
Yeah,
I thought
that part was fun.
Oh yeah, that was good, but it just it felt really subdued or maybe low energy or I don't know, compared to what he usually is.
He's a heel now, I guess.
Yeah. To me, though, at least, The Undertaker was the only one getting a push in his entrance, but I suppose that's because he and Shawn are going to be the main event at the pay-per-view, so that's more understandable, I think. This started off with Mankind and Hunter, and that looked great, just as we've come to expect. And even once Shawn and Hunter started double-teaming Mankind, it still looked good. I dare say it looked great, the double-teaming there. And that quickly became the theme here for me. Michaels and Hunter were working really well together in their double teaming. Their timing was great. It looked like they had been practicing behind the scenes for weeks leading up to this. Eventually, Rick Rude started making his way down to ringside as we went to commercial. He didn't start out down there. Chyna ended up getting in there and crotching Mankind on a corner post. That looked great. I mean, it was just a split second, but all of her Amazonian bionic muscles tensed whenever she pulled his crotch into the post. Great visual. And I like how every time Vince talks about Shawn Michaels, he says, whether you like him or not. And his tone of voice, the implication being that if you don't want to gobble Shawn's cock, you're a fucking idiot. And things kept up in a mostly positive direction. Again, to me, the biggest highlight was how well Hunter and Shawn were working together. Things started to get pretty out of hand with action at the outside, chairs getting picked up, and I had to remind myself that Vince warned us at the start that the world's worst referee, Earl Hebner, probably wouldn't be able to maintain control here, so at least we called that out at the very beginning. Shawn ended up wrapping a steel chair around The Undertaker's face. And that's not an exaggeration. I mean, there was practically an imprint of Taker's facial features left in the steel after that hit. That drew the DQ victory while JR was screaming, "My God, what a shot to the face!" The Undertaker got busted wide open with that. When we came back from a quick commercial break, we got a close-up view of the dented and bloody steel chair. A replay of The Undertaker getting nailed a few more times as we faded to black. So guys, this one is a weird one. So much of this episode was underwhelming for me, but then it had high points that were really, really high. I thought this was a good match and as close as we're going to get to heat going into the pay-per-view. So Ryan, please get us started on this match and the way that Raw ended tonight.
I thought this was a fantastic match and a fantastic way to end Raw. Right at the beginning, Shawn Michaels doing his hip gyrations towards Chyna and her just standing there like a statue, just fantastic like she's been doing. She just comes off great. And Mankind starting in the ring with Hunter, we're picking up right where they left off at the pay-per-view, and it still looks really awesome, these two guys. Bartlett, I completely agree when Shawn Michaels and Hunter start double-teaming Mankind. I think it maybe even looked better. And that was a good chunk of this match was Shawn Michaels and Hunter double-teaming Mankind and Mankind just selling his ass ass off and making this look great. When The Undertaker got in, there's nothing to complain about there either. He'll do the typical Undertaker thing, clear the ring. He plays the big monster and he does it effectively. A really great part, I thought, towards the end of the match, Mankind fends off both the sweet chin music and the pedigree. And JR says, it looks like someone got mugged on the boardwalk. And Vince mutters, well, that doesn't happen in Atlantic City. And JR fires back, oh, of course not. I laughed my ass off over that. But then it turns into complete pandemonium. Everyone's attacking each other outside the ring. And then The Undertaker gets fucking wrapped with that chair. And I think this is the story I remember hearing Shawn Michaels talk about, how, The Undertaker, he would get his shit back if you tagged him like this. And I remember Shawn Michaels specifically talking about this one where he did this chair shot and they got backstage and The Undertaker just said, wait for yours. And he said, and he was like, I spent the next month waiting for when The Undertaker was going to tag me because I knew I had it coming. It made for a great ending of this Raw though. And it really helped build up their match for the pay-per-view. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it did a great job of, going home for that pay-per-view between Shawn and Undertaker here. I mean, I'm certainly probably going to pay for that pay-per-view just to see that because I'm not going to pay to see the Patriot or Scott Putski,
I have a question if either one of you know. The main event, is it Undertaker and Shawn or is it Patriot and Bret?
I don't know.
It is Shawn and Undertaker.
Well, that makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah. Even though the Patriot is like the world's greatest wrestler right now because he's beating everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah. Speaking of the greatest wrestlers, you got 4 top guys here in the ring. So, I mean, this is just really good stuff all around. And you both mentioned the chemistry already between Helmsley and Shawn Michaels. You can just see it right away. This is the first time they've worked together. So, yeah, they're not DX yet, but this is really good stuff with them. And I really liked the end of this with, we don't see this type of busted open blood on Raw. So this was really good stuff. And the way that Helmsley and Shawn Michaels kind of ran away scared, I thought was good too.
Yeah.
That sells The Undertaker being that horror movie villain. That's really what his character kind of is.
And the blood just added to it.
Yeah. It's like the girl in the horror movie that stabs the villain and he's still alive, I thought that was really good stuff. And also part of Shawn Michaels being a heel that I love so much is that he does a little bit of overselling on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Not as much as he did with Hulk Hogan later on, but just a little bit, just enough that it makes it like it's good heel work to me.
There were a couple punches that The Undertaker landed, and Shawn Michaels flew back like he got hit by a cannon, but it looked great. Yeah. It didn't look bad.
All right. Well, gentlemen, as I said, we faded to black, so let's take it on over to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you take that first, please?
Well, despite Crush ruining the Nation of Domination promo and their first appearance with Rocky, that's one of my highlights for sure. I actually have 2 weeks in a row where I have 2 highlights. So the Nation of Domination, Farouk and Rocky with their promos, and then this final match, particularly the ending when The Undertaker is just gushing blood and his opponents are running away scared. And my low light is the Patriot because he sucks.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Very close here. My highlight is definitely the last match here. The action was great. It certainly brought the star power, and it did a good job, a great job of setting up Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker. Especially with Michaels leaving Taker, a bloody mess at the end here with that vicious chair shot, and it makes me excited for their upcoming match. Way more than the Patriot Hitman match, which brings me to my low light, which is definitely going to the Vader versus Patriot. This was really shitty action, and it did the exact opposite of what the last match did here. Instead of building up and making me excited for their match at the pay-per-view, it made me dread it. So that's definitely the low light.
I just picture that on the the box of the Patriot action figure. Shitty action.
Well, for my highlight, I mean, I can't deny it. The final match, specifically Shawn and Hunter's chemistry. I mean, it was so exciting to watch because as of right now, it's a new pairing. This is the first time we're seeing them together in action like this. And for it to be so early in the pairing and already look so damn good, it was just really exciting to watch. My lowlight, Dakota Runnels on the beach, Goldust and Marlena. No business being on our TV screens ever. That small child. So definitely low light. I think that might be a personal rule from now on. Anytime Dakota Runnels winds up on our screens, automatic low light.
Or is that Dakota Pillman?
Oh, that is true. Her hair is kind of curly now that you say that. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around August 18th, 1997 for us?
Yes, I do. From the Observer, we have some news on the competition. WCW is officially adding a 2-hour show on Thursdays starting in January on TBS, and that's what will be known as Thunder. So that's happening in January. No news yet on Steve Austin's neck injury. Everything right now seems to be up in the air, so Dave Meltzer doesn't know jack shit about that injury right now. WWF is doing a one-night-only pay-per-view from Birmingham, England on September 20th, which will be aired in the UK and Canada only.
Canada?
So we will have to see what type of build-up, if any, they do to that event. Word in the back is that Shawn Michaels did not want Rick Rude as a bodyguard. He wanted Helmsley as his bodyguard instead.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Here's a couple names from the past that we maybe forgot about. Mark Henry, remember him?
Yeah.
He's being brought back into training after breaking his leg, I guess, months ago at this point. So he will be back training and hopefully get back in the ring soon. Yokozuna, remember that guy? He's still under contract, but the WWF wants him to get down to 400 pounds, and it is not happening.
400 pounds. Why not just ask for his firstborn at that point?
Yeah.
He's what, 250 pounds away from 400 pounds at this point?
Yeah.
He's your average overweight American overweight at this point.
Yes. And going to the complete opposite side of things, I know you guys will be excited to hear this. The WWF has signed 6 mini wrestlers. So get ready for some bad comedy.
Oh, man.
And that is all.
Keep Lawler away from them.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most fun-loving Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at In Your House 17, Ground Zero, with matches featuring Scott Putski, Max Mini, and many more.
No.
So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.